With not double but triple coaxial drivers, improved ANC and spatial audio, Redmi will be hoping that the Buds 6 Pro does enough to stand out from those other popular sub $100 ANC buds on the market today. And by the end of this review, you should be in a very strong position to judge for yourselves, as you'll actually get to hear what they sound like courtesy of this binaural sound sample, see objective measurements as we compare their sound signature to some of their competitors. We've got an ANC sample as well, recorded in a busy, noisy coffee shop, again with comparisons to some of those other popular options. We've got proper call samples in busy outdoor and indoor locations, and fit, stability and comfort tests both with exercise and in everyday use. But let's start with the active noise cancellation, which Redmi claim has improved from the Buds 5 Pro by between 14 and 40%. But I'll let you be the judge of that in terms of how effective it is compared to their competition with this sample. So you had to listen quite closely there, but if you did, you'll have noticed that the Redmi did offer you an improvement over both the Realme and the Earfun. With mid-frequency sounds like voices and laughter, you heard in particular that it was coming through on those latter two but not on the Redmi, with an attenuation that sometimes reached 28 dB and was averaging out around 27. Only the Soundcore Liberty 4 NC outperformed them in this coffee shop scene. In the sample that you just heard, the ANC was at its strongest setting, but if you feel the cabin pressure is too high, you do have the option to adjust it using the slider in the Redmi app. They've also included adaptive and personalized noise cancellation modes, with the former adjusting to your surroundings and the latter adjusting to both your surroundings and your ear canal, although I didn't really notice much difference with either of these. You've also got 3 transparency modes: regular, enhance voice and enhance ambient sound. The regular and enhance ambient sound modes are pretty unspectacular. There's not a great deal of white noise, they are quite natural, but they're not particularly potent. Enhanced voice gives you a much more credible performance though, especially if it's close-up conversations that you're looking to discern. This is how the Buds 6 Pro mic sounds when you've got no sounds going on around you, but a far better indication of how they're going to perform on calls is to take them out in some busy, real-life scenarios, and that's what we've got coming up, both indoors and outdoors. I've also included a comparison to the better performer in its price category, the Realme Buds Air 6 Pro. And remember, I always use the same locations for my call samples, so if you want to compare these with other previous products I've reviewed, it should be very straightforward.
So the first test for the Redmi Buds 6 Pro is London's Borough Market, where it is really busy here, lots of people around me talking. What we're testing here is to see how effective they are at distinguishing your voice from voices that are going on around you. So if you're in any kind of busy environment where there's lots of people talking around you, then this is how you can expect the Redmi Buds 6 Pro to perform in that kind of scene.
The Realme Buds Air 6 Pro have been out a little bit longer, but they are widely recognised as one of the better performers on calls in busy scenes. So I didn't actually test them in our market last time around, so it'd be interesting to hear how they perform in comparison to the Redmi. As I said, distinguishing your voice from lots of other voices that you can hear around you and you would typically hear on a call on a lesser performing set of TWS.
And next up is a windy and busy outdoor scene to test the Redmi Buds 6 Pro. What we're trying to simulate here is how they would sound on your calls when you're on the daily commute and you've got a mixture of winds, you've got voices from nearby conversations, cars that are coming by, all the traffic noises, all those sorts of things that will complicate your call on the daily commute.
And this time it's the same test for the Realme Buds Air 6 Pro. It's so difficult getting a consistent amount of wind in the scene at any one time. As you know, I don't bother with those simulated background noises, maybe a fan around it. because it isn't reflective of real life. This is I can expect the Realme to perform by comparison in a windy, busy outdoor scene if you're on the daily commute, for example.
So we're testing the Redmi Bud 6 Pro, and this time how they perform on calls in a busy coffee shop here in the UK over Christmas. Lots of indecent chatter going on around me, lots of noise from the baristas making coffee, all those usual things that's going to get in the way of your call when you're making or taking a call in this kind of busy indoor scene.
This time we're testing once again the Realme Bud 6 Pro as a comparison to show how it performs compared to the Redmi. If you want to hear the full test, then do check out my full review. The link should be appearing above any minute now.
So as you heard there, the Redmi fared well on calls, measuring up to the Realme and probably outperforming it in some of those scenes. In the windy outdoor scene, it compensated the wind pretty well and your voice was very clear and articulate. But in the coffee shop scene, you did hear one of the slight problems that it has, where it gets too much noise in a similar frequency range and produces a crackle across your voice, which doesn't happen on the Realme, but this is a very minor quibble. Both of these buds perform very well, much better than the likes of the Soundcore Liberty 4 NC, the Earfun Air Pro 4 and the majority of the rest of their competitors in this price category. If you're one of those people that likes to switch to transparency mode while you're on a call, well, they do allow you to do that, which is always a bonus. Next, the audio, and as I mentioned in the intro, Redmi have used a really interesting eclectic mix of drivers, with two 6.7mm ceramic piezoelectric drivers handling the treble and an 11mm DD handling the bass. On the codec side, you're getting high-res audio thanks to the inclusion of support for LDAC. Before we dive deeper into that though, let's have a listen to the binaural sound sample so you can hear what they sound like for yourself. So just a short clip there, but long enough for you to hear that the Bud 6 Pro follows Redmi's usual approach of having lots of energy, particularly in that mid bass. Kick drums are punchy, lingering ever so slightly, which works really well in particular for energetic genres like EDM. Conversely, if you like genres like rock and metal and you listen at really high volumes, you might notice a little bit of congestion. With the out-of-the-box tuning, the piano sounded a little bit honky in that sample. That's something that can be very easily fixed with the EQ. Vocals are quite well done here, appearing front and center without being too prominent. Despite the existence of these dual piezoelectric drivers, Redmi haven't artificially raised the treble. Despite them being rolled off early, you've got decent texture to percussion, and cymbals aren't too splashy either. For vocals in particular, I think there's a good balance here of depth and note weight on male vocals, but also you've got a little bit of brightness without excessive sibilance for female vocals. The dual tweeters mean you've got extra air in the high trebles, and that creates a perception of a wider soundstage. Just don't let Redmi fool you into thinking that more drivers equals better sound quality. Because of the way that they're tuned, I still prefer the Samsung Galaxy Buds FE and their single 6mm dynamic driver over the 3-driver array that Redmi are giving you. Tuning has far more of an impact on the sound over the number of drivers, etc. Don't believe the hype, just believe your ears. When we look at the graphs, again, a much closer determinant of whether you're actually going to like the sound or not. You can see that both the OnePlus and the Earfun are more V-shaped, a little bit less musical and more emphasis on energy. The Realme sound cleaner and leaner with its more balanced bass and bigger treble extension, and the Redmi are somewhere in the middle between those first two and the Realme. Looking at the whole market under $100, and you can see that the Redmi fares pretty well. When it comes to actual sound quality, there aren't big differences between any of these. There's minimal differences in driver quality from the Earfun Air Pro 4 upwards. Ultimately, what's going to be best for you is based on your preference tuning. That's why I include the binaural samples and the measurements, so that you can make that decision for yourself instead of relying from the word of a reviewer who might not have the same preferences as you. Redmi have included a custom EQ and also 3 very usable presets, all of which basically do what they say they're going to do according to their title. Now, I've measured all of these presets, as you can see, and they're included on my Squig link. So if you wanted to use those as a baseline and then tweak the sound further using auto EQ, well, you can. I always use the same binaural samples as well, so in every review that sample is going to be the same. It's going to make it easy for you to compare each bud. Redmi do give you a 8-band custom EQ within their app. This was the best EQ setting that I could get according to my own preferences in the short time that I played around with it. Also in the app you'll find the menu for dimensional audio, essentially Redmi's answer to spatial audio, and whilst the immersive sound worked well and the different scene rendering options gave you a slight tweak depending on how you were using them, the head tracking is nowhere near what you would get with the Apple AirPods Pro, for example, so just don't expect too much. The effect is quite minor. The app also allows you to customize your touch and swipe controls with some limitations. Whilst it looks like you can change press and hold the left earbud and swipe left earbud, for example, your options are pretty limited. And the controls are one of the bugbears that I have with the Buds 6 Pro, in that the swipe action is on the outside of the bud. So when you put it in your ears and then try and actually use it, your first thought is to go for the inside, because intuitively that's typically where swipe actions are located. On the outside you have to kind of put your hand to the back of the earbud. It just doesn't make any sense, and it results in quite a few accidental touches. Also in the app, Redmi have included some useful features like ear tip fit test and the ability to toggle in-ear detection on and off. You've also got the ability to toggle multipoint here, and multipoint works really well, often not even needing you to press pause on your primary device. It just kicks straight in, and it seems to intuitively know which device you want to be using at the time that you need it. There are a couple of areas where the Redmi fall short of their competition though, and the main one being connectivity, a fundamental feature really if you want to be using these buds all the time. And like with Redmi's previous releases, I found that this just wasn't stable. In fact, it was even worse. Similar to the Samsung Galaxy Buds 3, also using LE audio, it connects to the left and the right bud separately. Presumably this will help with the issue of one bud draining quicker than the other, something that we see on a lot of budget buds. But because of the way it's been implemented, I would frequently have one bud just suddenly disconnect, so I'm only getting audio from my right bud, for example. At times I'd lose connectivity altogether and my YouTube video would start playing through the phone speaker while I'm on the train or on the tube. The only way to get it to work again would be rebooting the phone and also putting the buds back in the case and taking them back out again. And once this has happened a few times, your tolerance gets pretty short. The latency also falls short of a lot of its competition, and there's no added gaming mode to reduce it further. With gaming mode switched on, the OnePlus Buds 3 are 200 milliseconds better off. Something that you might not notice with videos, but you'll definitely notice while you're gaming. These drawbacks are a real shame, because from a design perspective, the Buds 6 Pro have a lot of things going for them, including this progress bar style battery LED on the front of the case. The case in general feels quite premium considering its price, both in looks and in operation. And whilst the design itself does look to have borrowed a little bit in the looks department from the QCY Mellow Buds Pro, its shorter stem seems to give it added stability. They perform better than the likes of the OnePlus Buds 3 and Realme Buds Air 6 Pro in the 100 jumping jacks test, passing with flying colours, although I suspect with maybe 10 or 20 more reps they definitely would have fallen out. For me at least, the occlusion effect was minimal, much better than the likes of the Earfun Air Pro 4, but they achieved this with a much fatter than average nozzle. If that shallow fit that doesn't go into the ear canal doesn't work for you, then the ergonomics of the Buds 6 Pro are going to be a no-go. Their battery life falls a little bit short of some of their competitors as well, although I did get just over 8 hours with AAC and ANC off. But if you start using features like spatial audio, high-res codecs and ANC, I found that figure dropped very quickly to just over 4. They do have a nifty quick charge feature though, with 5 minutes in the case, giving you 2 hours extra playtime. As we mentioned at the start of this review, there are a lot of options out there for you in that sub $100 category. Where the Redmi stand out is in that cool noise reduction. As you heard, regardless of the scene, it seems to perform pretty well. So if you're someone who's using a set of buds in particularly noisy environments and you're looking for as much noise reduction as possible, the Redmi may fit the bill. The ANC is also amongst the best in its price category. The ergonomics were decent, at least for me. The sound is okay without standing out, and it supports a bunch of different codecs, including LDAC, LHDC, and even Xiaomi's own proprietary codec. Unfortunately, this wasn't something that I could test. And most features are included here, except for the notable absentees like gaming mode and wireless charging. The only thing that prevents me from recommending them really is the connectivity issues that I experienced on my Sony Xperia 1 that also manifested on my Realme pad. I was testing the Chinese version as opposed to the global, which has now been released, and that gives you some added benefits like Google Fast Pair, and that may have resolved the connectivity issues, but I suspect it hasn't, so tread carefully. Finally, a big thank you to Teak33, or Sib Tiger as he's known on YouTube, for loaning me the product for this review. As always, this wasn't a paid review or a sponsored review. My full disclaimer is in the description. Do you own the Redmi Buds 6 Pro? If so, I'd love to hear from you. Give the video a like if you found it useful, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. For now, it's ReganCipher signing off.